It be football season. Let's ride.
The last time we previewed a game, it was the Super Bowl against the San Francisco 49ers. Maddie, what happened in that game?
Oh, just back-to-back world champs.
Gotcha. Let's start the show.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome into a live edition of the KC Laboratory presented by Emprise Bank, member FDIC. It is a game preview edition here on the KC Laboratory. Very excited to be here today. I'm Kent Swanson. That's Matthew Lane. Matthew, happy game week. How are we doing?
Ooh, buddy, it's here. Football season is like officially here, right? Like we had the Hall of Fame game, which like half counts. It counts because we're all desperate, but like it doesn't really count. And now we're here. It is the first preseason game. We are about to embark on the season in which the fans of the back-to-back world champion Kansas City Chiefs look to do something that's never been done before. And this is the beginning of the adventure. Like this is what it's like to be a fan. This is what we get excited for. And it starts this week, Ken.
I was not even really in the mindset of preseason football until the other day when I kind of realized, like, oh man, there's a few players I'm really excited to actually watch on Saturday. Like it all kind of started to come together. Like, oh yeah, we get to watch Kingsley Suamataia. We get to watch Xavier Worthy maybe play a little bit.
Oh, save it for later in the pod, man.
I know. I'm just
too early.
I know, but I'm just like, there's just like a list of all these players that I was like, oh yeah, I get to see him play too. And so I don't know. I got a little excited thinking about getting to watch this team play.
I'm with you. No, but it's even beyond the Chiefs. Like, obviously, I'm the most excited for the Chiefs, right? But like, even just the rest of the NFL going off on the first preseason, like all the rookies, second-year players, all these young guys that you expect. Like, not everybody gets jazzed up for preseason football, and it's not the real thing. It's not week one or anything like that. But this first week, when teams are going to be playing the players and not just like the players that only the biggest of nerds know that play in the Hall of Fame game, right? But like the actual normal fans know players are going to be playing in all these week one preseason games. It's an amazing feeling. I'm with you. I've said it a couple of times. It kind of felt like a mundane roll into the NFL season this year. And maybe it's because we're Chiefs fans. And it's just like, oh, hey, they're winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl. The year's really long. What's the point of getting all jazzed up in, July or August? However, I will say this week, like just knowing that the games are starting this week, it's definitely it's turned. It's flipped the switch. Like I could not be more excited for this game to come up. I'm excited that we're previewing a game that's about to happen this week and not like 3 months in advance where we have to put it on a food scale or we have to put it on a gas station scale. Ooh, hint, hint. Something like that. I'm glad it's a game that's actually coming up.
We don't have to put anything on any scale, right?
I think we do.
I think our homework this offseason is to eliminate the scale and that whole.
Oh, I just want to grade everything on a 1 to 10 scale. That's fun. Let's give some A's, B's, and C's instead of doing something fun.
Did you have the glasses ready? Did you know you were baiting me to that?
I did not, but I had them on hand, and it just worked.
Oh, I thought I walked into one. Honestly, I'm not kind of surprised you didn't have Tucker have some music.
I'm spry. Ready. I think on my feet, buddy. I'm ready to go.
Good for you.
The one-on-one.
Well, congrats. You wanted to talk a little bit about the depth chart before we got into some of the stuff with the preseason games, and I think that's fine. There's a few things that were a little bit interesting. So the floor is yours, though. I'll give you a chance to kind of cook a little bit because I know you wanted to talk a little bit about it.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how important the first depth chart is. I think a lot of people get excited for them. Like, it's fun to see. I don't know what to take away from these things because it's usually just I feel like it's just an intern kind of not intern, but like an assistant writes these out based on, just what they think, what they've heard, what Andy Reid has maybe said in passing, but none of it's real. Like, this doesn't really matter until the final cut down day comes. So, take everything on here that we're about to say with a grain of salt. However, this is what caught my eye. There's a fullback His name is Carson Steele. This is coming off of a strong week of practice. We had said when we did our roster prediction, I was pounding the table for Irv Smith, but I did admit that it probably comes down to tight end 4 or a fullback, one of the two making the roster, and I was leaning Irv Smith then. If they're going to completely list a guy at fullback coming off of a strong week, maybe Carson Steele is pushing for that spot. So, I thought that was one of the most interesting things on here.
All right, I'm setting the over on Carson's to make the Chiefs roster at 1.5. What are you taking right now?
Carson's at 1.5. Ooh. I'm going to go over. I'm leaning into Carson Steele right now. We'll see what happens. I want to see him block. I want to see the Chiefs put him out there, and I want to see him lead through a hole as a blocker. I want to see him pull around on a power play or something. I just want to see what that looks like on counter, on power. I want to see him as a lead blocker, not just a kick out guy coming across the formation. So I'm reserving judgment to change it at that point in time. But I'm leaning towards Carson Steele kind of slipping into this final spot over in Irv Smith. And it's for the same concept. I just think they want somebody that can add a little bit more of a power element, and he might be able to do that.
I pushed a little bit for Carson Steele as we were talking through the 2024 roster predictions, and it wasn't because I liked the college tape. I liked the versatility. I thought, hey, look, this is a guy like pass protection ability. I think is something that could really be something of value here. Moving forward. And yeah, he's got a lot of versatility, both as a special teamer and as a fullback. And I'm not I think it's fun that he's a fullback. I think it's fun that we're kind of listing him as a fullback and all that stuff. I think it's fun. I think there's a little bit more juice and a little bit more value than Carson Steele is just a fullback. I think you can give him the ball a little bit, much like you gave Darrell Williams Williams the ball a little bit when he was here in Kansas City. And I think he can kind of operate in that kind of role where it's, hey, look, good pass protector, capable hands. You're going to run a swing route. You're going to be an outlet to our quarterback. You're probably not going to run too many routes. But we'll get you involved a little bit. I could see Carson Steele making this team. I think just conceptually, hey, young running back, cost control for the next 4 years, has some ability. I think he's the best of the running backs that they brought into training camp, from a rookie perspective. And I think this is a guy that could potentially make this football team.
Yeah. And it seems like a possibility. It's just, I don't think he's going to make the team based on being their fourth running back, I guess, right? They're not going to put him at fullback, and he's not going to be their fourth running back and then make the team. It's going to have to be as an actual fullback or pseudo H-back type role. So like I said, I am excited to see him maybe be a lead blocker on some runs. I don't mean, halfback dive up the middle and he's got to go dig out a mic in the middle of the hole, but can they go run power and can he land the kick out? Can they run counter and have him get up into the hole and catch a linebacker? I want to see what he looks like as a legitimate lead blocker on some of the runs that they do use. So I'm holding off full on excitement for it, but I think we're leaning that direction. Was there anything from the depth chart that caught your eye? Because I got one or two more things in here.
Yeah. Do you find it at all interesting that Shamari Connor was listed as a cornerback?
No, this goes into an intern filled it out. And if you go to an Our Lads page, all of this past season, Shamari Connor has been listed as a cornerback and not a safety.
See, I don't think when you look at a roster construction, they're keeping 3 safeties and Shamari Connor. Shamari Connor is a safety. And so I don't know. I thought that was just a little bit funny. Kelvin Joseph being fourth on the depth chart at one of the cornerback positions was also a little bit surprising because I think a little bit highly of him compared to what they put there for him.
It almost feels like this was written before training camp. And so guys that were added with high expectations got put in a higher spot, but guys that were added later and then maybe started to rise throughout camp were still on the back end. Now, that said, Kelvin Joseph hasn't practiced this past few weeks. He seems like any ground that he may have gained, he could be squandering away just by not being available. But I don't think that was taken into consideration when writing this out. I just feel like this was written going into training camp, and guys that, were kind of came on later, they were just okay, well, those are going to stay where they are.
You think they had Carson Steele listed as a fullback a month ago?
I think Carson Steele's been listed as a fullback since they drafted him. I don't think Carson Steele and his 4.7 speed was drafted as a halfback.
I think he's getting run as an H.
Right. No, sure. He's going to play some, but I don't think they drafted him with the idea that this guy is a pure running back. They drafted him to put him as a fullback type of player. And so, yeah, I think he was always listed as a fullback on their internal depth chart.
Kadarius Toney is also shot into the sun on this list as well. Was that one of your takes?
No, it's not. And this goes back to my thing. Like, if you look at I think it's notable that Nico Remigio, who didn't get a play at all last year, is ahead of Kadarius Toney. Technically, like, speaking on this depth chart, I understand they're listed on two different lines, but like, he's a spot ahead of him. So like, I don't know. That was funny to me. Toney being listed so far back and then only being listed as the backup kicker punt returner and not the starting kicker punt returner, which is my last take. I think you might be able to put a little bit of stock into the starting quote unquote returners that are listed here, which is Xavier Worthy as a punt returner. And then Nico Remigio as a kick returner. Then I guess, Hardman's the backup. That's not even Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney's not even listed as a returner. Woo, notable. Very notable. So yeah, I don't know. That's something. But I do take note of the starting returners. Worthy, Remigio. Remigio's also listed as a backup punt returner. So like, you really want to get value for a return spot. Hey, Remigio's the only guy that appears as a returner on both, as like a starting returner, also a kick returner, and the wide receiver depth chart. Mecole Hardman, the other guy that gets both returner spots.
Are those all of your training, all of your depth chart takes?
That's all I got. That's the only thing that's just the returns. Just the returners. Carson Steele at fullback.
Bring the fullback back. All right, let's talk about what actually matters in this game. So, I think it's tough to decipher through some of this because, it's a good stage setting, I think, when you're talking about what to watch in a preseason game. And I just kind of harken back to like when we watched this defense get torched by the Saints first team offense in New Orleans. And that didn't happen barely the rest of the year. I just think about just how funny it is to kind of try to pair some of that stuff. We worried about Trent McDuffie making some plays over, at the catch point, and he really did a pretty good job the rest of the year after struggling against the Saints in that particular game. So I think it's worth asking the question and maybe trying to set the stage of like what actually matters in the game that we're about to watch against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Not the results, not the scores. It's hard to pick out what does matter. I think you're looking for individual skills, very specifically guys to show improvement on things that you thought they needed improvement on. So like if you're looking at a second, third year player and something they may have struggled with in the years past, you said Trent McDuffie. I would love to see Trent McDuffie get challenged vertically at some point in time this preseason and see if some of the ball skills that he has shown in training camp can show up in a game situation. I would love to see Chamari Connor get out there and get some man-to-man reps out of the slot because I think sometimes he might be a little stiff-hipped and there might be some matchup issues that he has as a slot corner. So there's specific things for certain players that I'm looking for, but it's very much that. It's specifics. It's not the overarching. It's not that the team, blow a coverage and give up a touchdown. It's not did their pass rush absolutely dominate the game. I'm looking for guys to show things that either A, they've been inconsistent at showing, or B, have kind of been weaknesses in the past. And so it's a lot more individual for me when I'm watching preseason football rather than the totality of everything.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a great way of putting it because both teams are going to walk in with some level of there's no game planning for the opponent. There's really not a ton of worry about what they're doing on their side of the ball. You're going to make your checks and adjustments based on what you're seeing, but you're not, putting a ton in from a game planning perspective. You're running an offense. You're running a simple offense. It might work. It could work based on what the other team wants to work on. Like, it doesn't seem to be a ton of synergy between what the teams are trying to accomplish there. You're just lining up and playing. And when it looks like that from a schematic standpoint, you kind of have to take some of this stuff with a grain of salt. All these players are not always going to be put in the best situation to succeed. All of them are not going to be having their strengths exploited, as Andy Reid likes to say. There's going to be, some moments that can look rough for some of these guys. But the flip side is that, like, you could still see players making plays, playing fast through that, right? And I think that's one of the things is, like, I don't want to completely avoid plays being made because I think that can help elevate and give players yet another look if they're playing fast and they're making plays and they're not thinking as much. And so, I think some of the plays being made, we don't take, look at score and really care all that much, but you look at some plays made in a vacuum and say, okay, maybe this guy's worthy of getting a look, another opportunity with one of these other opponents or one of these, the second team now. So I don't know. I think no one's really set up for success. Sometimes you can happen to be set up for success, right? But I mean, it's not like you're going to see a ton of game planning.
Another thing, I do think that like your rotation in preseason games, it's not tells you everything, but it's not like training camp where they're going to cycle in entirely new offensive linemen randomly on day. They're going to, in the past, Andy Reid has just had the left guard and left tackle flip to the right side for a day. They don't do that in preseason games, right? So like, I do think that you get a little bit better idea, especially on position groups that have to work as a team, as in unison. You're not going to put in a random linebacker to go with your linebacker group that you're not planning on playing together. You're not going to put an offensive lineman out there that you don't plan on playing together at some point in time. So I do think you can pay attention to when guys get on the field. Wide receiver, running back, those ones are a little pass rushers. Those ones are a little different. You can cycle those guys in whenever you want just to see what somebody looks like playing with the first team or the second team that might not be there. But the position groups that have to play as a group and it matters, they're going to kind of try to keep the guys they anticipate playing together or at least competing to play together. So your offensive line rotation, worth noting. Your secondary rotation, worth noting. Things like that I do think matter a little bit. And so when you see Kadarius Toney come out with the first team offense, it doesn't mean as much. Whereas if you do see Wanya Morris come out with the first team offense, that means a little bit more, I think. Like it depends on the position group, which one means a little bit more.
I think everything after this first game matters a lot more than the game itself too, because I think at this point, after the first game, it does feel like they kind of start paring down some of these rotations and start kind of kind of setting in the standard and expectation for what is going to get closer and closer to this 53-man roster. I think things start getting a lot more concrete. So, I honestly, I think that some of those earlier rotations on defense are a very strong indicator on, especially the defensive side of the ball. If Kamal Haddon's playing with the first team somehow, if Kamal Haddon's, playing earlier than you're anticipating, somebody like that, it's like, oh, take note of that. That's worth paying attention to. You're not just throwing Kamal Haddon in there and using that opportunity if you don't have a plan for him.
Right.
I think it's also fascinating to see kind of pecking order a little bit. Some of the depth players, like if Malik Herring comes in before Felix Anudike-Uzomah, I'm paying attention to that a little bit.
Situational. That's a situational thing to me, I guess. Like, is it 1st and 10? Is it 2nd and 2? Is it 3rd and 8? Like, if it's 3rd and 8 and that happens, I think that means more than if it's 1st and 10 and so on and so forth. Like, yeah.
Well, no. I will say the only thing is why not try to give. Well, we'll talk about Felix on defense here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But the one thing we haven't talked yet that I think is actually important to pay attention to is special teams. Like, who's on the first team kickoff? Who's on first team kick return? That can also be a very strong indicator of who's kind of, got a leg up there in that factor, right? Like in that piece of it, in the Dave Toub side of things. That, because honestly, I don't want to say Dave Toub's a little bit of the wild card. When you're looking at all this, Dave Toub is a little bit of the wild card. Where he stands on some of these guys can ultimately help decide a few pieces at the bottom of the roster. And I could say maybe even more this year because of the new rules. So, who's getting those opportunities early on in the first rotation in special teams? That's a significant one to pay attention to.
Yeah. And this could be a little bit of a blind spot for how much knowledge gets trickled down from the NFL level to people that aren't there. But I feel like seeing a good returner in the preseason translates pretty well to a good returner during the regular season. So it would be hard for me to see, and maybe you know of one, maybe somebody listening knows one, you can throw it out there. Does anybody remember a guy that was a great returner in the preseason that was just bad at it during the regular season? Like, is something that we commonly see? It feels like a skill set that should translate pretty clear from the preseason to the regular season. So if somebody looks really good, that might be worth noting. If somebody looks pretty bad or like the game's moving too fast for them, a la Deneric Prince, once he took kick returns last year in the preseason, and all of a sudden it looked like the game was moving a little too quick for him, that might be worth noting that says, hey, he's not ready to do returns right now in the NFL. So yeah, and with the new special teams rules, who seems to have a good understanding of how to navigate that, how you want to play it out, like that's definitely the most interesting and probably the most telling side of the ball or football that's going to happen.
If Kingsley's done after a few, like if Kingsley's out with the ones, game over. Like if Kingsley's out and done with the ones, like it's over. Like I think those.
Okay.
Oh, no.
What if he takes a series? He takes a series with all the starters. Comes out the next series, it's Wanya Morris playing next to Mike Caliendo still or whoever. He takes a series or two, and then Kingsley comes back. Like, what if they go back and forth, right? Like with this first game, the starters are only going to play one series. Andy Reid's lying to you when he says they're going to play a quarter. They're playing one series. O-line
might play, a couple here or there. Like they might get a couple extra.
If Kingsley is the only left tackle that plays with the ones, then yes, I agree with you. Yep. I just wonder what happens if it's a little bit of like, what if the offense plays two? What if the offensive line plays two series, each get a series, then it goes back? Do you still think it's over if he's the first one out there, or how does that work for you?
You know what? I'll answer it after we take a break because that seems more what to watch on the offensive side of the ball. So we'll talk more about that after this.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Just as a reminder, we do have the Mint Mobile text line, the Mint Mobile KCSN hotline, where you can text a wonderful hotline manned by Tucker D. Franklin, which I don't know who else I would rather text at KC Sports Network than Tucker Franklin. Text 913-407-6524. He's always goofing on it. So like if you want if you need him to pick a team for your college football dynasty, you can do that. If you have a serious question for 21 questions, even us sometimes here, we might answer a few questions here or there. Hit him up. Again, 913-407-6524. If you text during the show, maybe we'll even, maybe we'll hit you up. Maybe we'll be able to get there.
Banger questions from the Mint Mobile hotline for 21 questions this week.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm.
Who did you do 21 questions with?
With the great one himself, Craig G. Stout. The G stands for great.
Can I tell a story about the Mint Mobile text line real quick?
Sure.
Absolutely.
This just happened earlier today as Maddie and I were getting ready for 21 questions. I was sending him some text messages from the text hotline, right? I was copying and pasting them, and I had sent a message to Maddie about Isaiah Pacheco and contract numbers and about a potential Isaiah Pacheco extension that could be coming down the pipeline. The only problem was I put Maddie's number in the phone wrong, so I texted a random person about Isaiah Pacheco contract numbers. They did not respond.
Sad.
We gotta find out if they ever do get back to you because that was.
I'll keep you guys posted.
You opened up a whole can of worms on a Pacheco extension. Anyways. What to watch on the offensive side of the ball? I think Kingsley Suamataia. I'm just fascinated to watch him. Period. I do think that he's kind of firmly the starting left tackle at this point. Like I really am buying it. All the meaningful snaps have gone to him, and I'm fascinated to see what kind of sample size we actually get of him and how he looks at that. Because I do think that they really truly want to try to make him the guy. Unless he just falls flat on his face in this first game. And honestly, even if he, doesn't look great, I still think they're going to keep rolling him out there for at least a little bit longer in this process. I think the Kingsley Suamataia is one of the guys I'm paying the most attention to on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, I think he's clear cut, like the one player probably in the whole team that everyone's going to pay the most attention to. How does he look? Is he a rookie? This went back to what actually matters and like what overall you're looking for, not even specifically offensively. If a bad play happens, does it snowball or is it something that gets corrected and he bounces back from, right? If he gets beat around the edge, does he start chasing speed rushes and start giving up inside counters? If he gets ran through his chest, does he start being too slow-footed and getting beat around the edge because he's trying to compensate? And this is any player, but like Kingsley specifically, because he's a guy that we've seen in camp so far, has had his struggles as any rookie would, and then we've seen his camps gone on, he's gotten better and better and better. You hope that carries over to the whole game. But if it doesn't, if there's a bad rep here or there, which is fine, completely expected, just getting that out there. You have one bad rep, two bad reps for him doesn't mean anything, but how does he respond to it? What's his reaction? What is his, how does he come back from what could be a bad rep here or there? What is his response to it? So I think things like that are big, especially for him. And I think thing goes across the entire offensive line. That's for all these guys, but specifically this rookie coming in. And I guess like on that point, I'm also intrigued to see Wanya Morris, because can he do something that puts him back in this competition, or is the competition entirely about Kingsley not being bad? Like, right? Is there any level of good that Wanya Morris can be, especially if he's only playing with the second team, that can get him back in that competition if Kingsley just does okay? Or does Kingsley have to be actively bad? So yeah, the left tackle competition, I think, is like the bullet point one for what everybody should be looking for on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I don't know how much really can be done to unseat Kingsley. I think there's a story told here, just from a perspective. Like, I think there's a lot of layers to why they are throwing Kingsley Suamataia out there and giving him every opportunity possible to win this job. And I don't think they're deviating away from that plan, because it hasn't really been a competition. It hasn't been a competition for like 2 weeks now. Any meaningful snaps with pads, it's Kingsley. A lot of these opportunities, it's Kingsley. They might throw and sprinkle Wanya Morris in a little bit here or there, like it's, a little bit of a competition just to, but it's snaps in the back end of a 10-10-10 or some type practice or something like that. And so even if Wanya looks good, like I think to some degree, I don't know how much it matters. I think you want to see him play well. One thing I'm paying attention to a little bit is like, I don't think it's just going to be a night and day progression from the practices to the games. And like Kingsley's had his ups and downs, but sometimes in these, training camp situations, even with the one-on-ones, they're being asked to do different things and try different things and play in different techniques. And sometimes that doesn't always translate to success in these one-on-one, but it gives them live reps to try against somebody in a setting that doesn't have, a ton of impact. So I think it'll be interesting just to see Kingsley Suamataia get to cut loose and play, because he is having a lot thrown at him from a technique perspective, from a playbook's perspective. So just getting to go out and play, like, how does he look just getting to play free, without having to think or having to worry about a specific technique that you're focusing on for that particular rep or that particular segment of practice. And that's something I'm paying attention to. Like, what does he look like when he gets to cut loose? I do think we're going to see some kind of toss or two to get him out in space. Like, just give him a chance to kind of just see, to get some confidence and do something that kind of plays into his strength. So I think he's going to get out in space and go do something, and they're going to try to get him out on some kind of toss. That would be my prediction, is we are going to get some kind of toss play that lets Kingsley get out there.
My biggest thing to watch an offense is less about a specific player and just, do the Chiefs try to uncork one? Do they just let one rip? And I don't think they're not going to give you some, crazy play design where they try to do something to get 3 verticals running within the same, half of the field or the same third of a field or anything. They're not going to give you anything crazy, but are they going to come hard off play action? Are they going to half roll something out? And are they going to try to really push the ball downfield? And even more than once, this goes throughout the whole game. This isn't just with Patrick Mahomes. This is the entire team. Are they going to have a couple plays designed to get the ball actually pushed vertically downfield and not just on these random one-off, kind of like sideline fade routes? Are we going to get some true go routes, some true 9 routes? Are we going to get more deep posts that are really trying to split 2 high safeties if they're there? Again, the Chiefs aren't going to show you everything. Andy Reid's going to be very, very vanilla with a lot of what he does, but I do think they might want to put a couple of these, if this is part of the game plan going into the regular season, they might want to put a couple of these out there, get some reps in and live reps and see what happens. So I just want to see what that looks like when they do. Is it coming the same like it did last year? Always off hard play action, off these little half rolls, or are they actually going to push the ball like a vertical passing offense did in, 2019, 2018, 2020, stuff like that?
I think they're uncorking one on the first play. I think they are trying to set a tone, and I think they are trying to establish the vertical passing game again. And I think that they are going to try to do that in the first live rep and just put the entire league on notice. I think they're going to try to chuck one down to Xavier Worthy. I think they're going for it. And it might be one of those, just throw the ball. I don't even care if it's, just let's cut it loose and, put a little fear in the National Football League again about the vertical stretchability that this Kansas City Chiefs team has. I think it's the first play. I think they're just uncorking one and letting one rip. And I mean, they were letting it rip a little bit that first training camp practice open to the public too. I think there's a
Sure.
tone that they want to set. I think, maybe they want people to know that they mean business this year down the, vertically. I could see that being something that they're trying to establish here. So it benefits everybody if they put the fear of the vertical passing game back into Kansas City. So yep. I think it's the first play of the game. I really do. I think that, and look, if they score, then Patrick Mahomes gets to go put a visor on, and then we call it a day.
Call it a day.
So
Yeah, it'd be the first day. Yeah, and I'm curious even beyond just like that, even beyond Mahomes to Worthy, just the entire game. Just how often do they try to work it downfield, and what does it look like? Because like last year, especially as the year went on, the vertical passing game was very predictable when it was going to happen. It was going to be a lot of times when Watson and MVS were both on the field on the outside. And a lot of times it was going to come off a heavy play action or one of them, but like they did it when they were mirrored a lot. There was going to be a lot of those little fade routes where they could use their size and maybe try to box a guy out or stack on top of him. Or they got a couple deep overs to McColl they tried later in the playoffs and stuff. But like it was a very predictable deep passing game. And what does it look like now? Can they get vertical without having to go hard play action? Can they get vertical without having to go with these rollouts? What are they going to be able to do throughout the whole game? I got my eyes on that. Is there anything else that you specifically are watching on offense?
I am very excited to watch Carson Wentz in a Chiefs uniform. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I'm genuinely excited to see how that looks. I'm fascinated. He's gonna get a little playing time, and I think he has the ability to be the best Chiefs backup that they've had in the Mahomes era. He seems like a guy that could maybe win you a game or two if you really need to, and it's there's some playmaking ability to him outside of maybe what you saw from a Chad Henne. I'm not slandering the good name of Chad Henne, but I don't know. I think Carson Wentz saw this as an opportunity for him to revitalize his career a little bit, learn from the best, and get into an offense that has proven to be quarterback friendly. And if something ever did happen to Pat, he'd be given a really good opportunity to kind of reclaim some value in the market if he had to play for any period of time. I don't know. I'm just fascinated to see how the Carson Wentz experiment's going. So I don't know. I'm excited to get some reps of him. So I think it'd be fun. Anything else from you?
Yeah. The one, like the big player one that I have, Jared Wiley. I want to see Jared Wiley. There's been enough clips. I still question like his ability to handle the physicality of the NFL as a rookie. Not going forward, this is not a long-term concern, but as a rookie coming out of TCU in a very air raid system and just seeing some of the reps that he put out there with the physicality of the NFL, I wonder what it's going to, or the Big 12, and now going to the NFL, I wonder if he's going to be ready for the physicality NFL players hit him with. It's preseason. He's probably going to be playing a lot with the 2s, 3s, and 4s, and that means guys desperately trying to make a roster. They are trying to earn a spot. They're going to be as physical as they can. How does he handle that? How does he handle that level of physicality here? Because there's been some reps in training camp where he's done a pretty good job, especially against these linebackers the Chiefs have, of being physical through the catch point, being physical during his routes. There's also been some blocking reps that have left a little bit desired for me. So I am curious what he looks like from that regard. I think he's clearly going to be an athlete. They're clearly going to have package of plays for him in the red zone to try to use his size and his athleticism as a mismatch. But is this a guy that can come in and play more than just as a package player deep in the red zone and be able to handle that? Are they going to be able to get away with not having a legitimate blocking tight end because all three tight ends that aren't great blockers are all good enough? So I think Jared Wiley's like one of the only player besides Kingsley Suamatea who I think can make massive strides in this game, where like my opinion might not drastically, but might start changing a little bit and trying really hard not to overreact to how good or how many troubles or difficulties he might face.
I think some playmaking at the wide receiver position could help stack this a little bit too. So I'm just kind of seeing what looks like with the wide receiver group and who steps up and makes some plays, and does that shake the rotations up a little bit as this team's trying to figure out and stack that wide receiver room. I think we can move on to the defense. For me, the defense starts with Felix Anudike-Uzomah. I think he's the one I'm most interested in. This is the first round pick of 2023 for the Chiefs. Kind of got a redshirt year, didn't really have to play all that much. Very young kid, turned 22 in January, so this is still a young prospect. But I think we kind of all saw him as a project, when he was coming out of college. But you've got to show progress, and this is I think a pretty important offseason for him. This is a pretty important preseason stretch of games here for him where he needs to show growth, show improvement, show some ability as a pass rusher at minimum, because, this team really does need somebody to step up and be a contributing factor off the edge. He doesn't have to be an all-world player, but they need some juice up the arc. They need some juice off the edge, and Felix Anudike-Uzomah is the guy that's primed to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that has a lot of ground in terms of like the public opinion that he can make up. Can he go out there? First of all, can he get off the line of scrimmage as quick as everybody else around him? Because that was a struggle for him last year. And then when he does that translate to a pass rush plan? Can he show off like some pass rush moves that are going to really stress opposing blockers in a way other than like, we think we can see it, we think it's there, we think we see the tools, but can it actually start to come to fruition? It's a preseason game. It's one game. If there's struggles, it's not the end of the world, but you would definitely hope to see him start to really take off in this one, look explosive, really threaten the edge with the speed, because that's something the Chiefs don't have. And if he's playing deeper into the game, which also noteworthy, if Felix is playing deep into the third, fourth quarter, I understand he needs the reps, but if he's playing that long, that might, let you know that the Chiefs think he needs reps more so than they need him healthy. And like, that's also worth putting in the back of your mind. But when he's going up against backups, clear backups, when he's going up against third stringers, if he does he clearly look different? Does he move different than them? Does he clearly look like he's overmatching them? Because like, you put George Karlaftis out there versus a third string offensive tackle, it's going to look like hell. Like, it's just going to be ugly. You're going to be able to tell right away these guys are different caliber of players. Not that Felix is expected to be as good as Karlaftis right now, but he's a first round pick. The Chiefs are needing an impact from him. If he's going up against a third string tackle, you need him to look different.
Absolutely. And I do think he's going to get reps. And I don't know if it's an indictment on him if he gets more reps, because I do think it's just important for him to get some live game opportunities. This is a guy that, he's a rotational player this year, and they need him to, you obviously want him to stay healthy. And maybe if he flashes and he stands out, maybe they just shut him down. But, if he's still kind of looking like he needs to get some opportunities and maybe get some confidence there, I think they keep him in. So I could see them getting him plenty of opportunity in this game. And if they don't, and we still don't see much, then they probably feel pretty good about where he stands. But and hopefully that's the case. But I do anticipate we're going to see a little bit of Felix Anudike-Uzomah in this game, just because I think he's a guy that probably needs it more than anybody. What on defense is of interest to you, Matthew?
Ooh, the big one here. I need a cornerback, just one cornerback, not named Trent McDuffie, to just do something that matters. And by that, I mean, just like, go win the job. I think I said this on 21 Questions, so I apologize for you guys listening to that later in the week. A lot of the same stuff is in there, but like, I need someone to go win this job. Somebody go make plays. Somebody be good enough that Steve Spagnuolo can no longer rotate you out for one of the other 5 guys competing for your position. Be good enough that you are no longer in a competition. You win the job. And it doesn't matter who it is. It can be anybody from Jalen Watson, who was coming back from injury and immediately inserted into the starting role, down to Keith Taylor or Echo Boydo, the guys that seem to be getting the least amount of first team reps, but some nonetheless, right? Somebody go earn a spot. Somebody go make some plays. And if I know Steve Spagnuolo, there's a couple things he wants to see. Like, he wants you to be not technically sound. He wants you to be structurally sound. I don't think they're that much of a stickler for technique. I think they want you to be schematically, structurally sound. But boy, if you can flash some playmaking ability on the ball, they are going to do their damnedest to get you out there on the field. Like, that is something that they are stressing year after year. With L'Jarius Sneed, didn't come up with a ton of ball production his past couple seasons with the Chiefs, but that was something they really liked for him as a rookie. They would love to see another corner come out and make some plays on the ball. So just somebody show up and take that job. Let the cornerback competition be for just cornerback 3, not cornerback 2 and cornerback 3. I think that's really going to be a problem going into the year if it kind of stays the way it is right now.
I heard Albert Breer wrote kind of a little bit about, and when he had some observations from Chiefs camp, it sounded like, Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, and it's Najee Johnson kind of keeping the pressure on them. Almost like, there's really a 3-man race kind of. Essentially, it's the 3 rookies from 2022 kind of seem to be the ones that have the leg up, which isn't super surprising. We've seen some other names thrown in there, but yeah, it could be. I'm excited to watch Najee Johnson just because, we haven't seen Najee play, much in the last calendar year. So hopefully we get a chance to watch him a little bit, because I'd like to see, how he looks. This is a player that very clearly has made an impression on this coaching staff. And even after an ACL is pushing to play and get some playing time, and seem to be trending in a direction that he could be seeing some time contributing on last year's team. I kind of have an idea of what Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams are, but hopefully they've taken a step in year 3. But I'm really excited to see what Najee Johnson's up to on the defensive side of the football. You're ready. You're ready to cook. I saw.
Yeah, I just gonna say, like, Najee Johnson. I'm not writing it off, and it's just training camp. But I've seen enough clips from training camp to say that man looks like a man coming back from a major knee injury that's not moving with 100% conviction or at 100% speed that he would have in the years past. There's just been some reps in which Najee Johnson pre-injury, I feel like, would have at least just moved more fluidly and more explosively. It looks like a guy that is battling knee soreness and a guy coming back from a major knee injury that maybe doesn't trust it 100% all the time, which would make sense. But I also wonder if that impacts his ability to really get back to the position that it sounded like he was going into last year before his injury. So I have some reservations there. And Joshua Williams, I think Watson and Joshua Williams are most likely going to get these 2 cornerback spots, right? That seems most logical to me. Most likely it's up to someone to go take their spot. Joshua Williams has been the only healthy guy all camp, and he hasn't secured the spot. He's still in the competition. That doesn't give me a lot of confidence. It sounds like he's just got that spot because he's been there. He's been available rather than he's not earned it, but not that he's taken it. So I want somebody to come out, and this could be a Williams, this could be a Watson, this could be Najee Johnson coming back, whatever it is, all healthy. A guy that I was really excited about, Kelvin Joseph, had made a lot of strides to start camp. He's been injured the past couple weeks though, right? Or not weeks, but a couple days. He hasn't practiced for a few days now. He got some run with the first team. There was some good, there was some bad, as you'd expect. I hope he gets to play. Like I said, I don't think he practiced today when we were recording this on Wednesday. So he's missed a few days of practice. I wonder if that's really hurting his chance to really get a spot in here, because he's not overly familiar with the other players or the scheme compared to some other guys. So there's a lot of guys out there available. I just want someone to come take that job.
Yeah, I'm going to be surprised if we actually get to see Kelvin Joseph in this game, just because of where things have been trending from an injury perspective. And I'm just hoping we get to see Najee get some run too. I hope we get a little bit of Najee run, just to, this is a guy that was generating a lot of buzz in camp last year, and then he got hurt. And yeah, I really want to see, I want to see what it looks like. Are there, any young players? I'm excited to see Curtis Jacobs a little bit. Just the linebacker out of Penn State. I'm kind of curious to see what it looks like for him. He has kind of been a guy that played a lot as an overhang at Penn State. I want to see him operate from the box. If he gets to operate from the box a little bit, I want to see how he covers. I want to see where he is in the special teams pecking order. Fabian Levette's also one I kind of want to get an eyes on, because I think it's an uphill battle for him to win a roster spot personally at the defensive tackle spot, especially with Derek Nottie back in the mix. But I think if he shows enough juice as a pass rusher from the nose tackle position and shows some stuff, he could definitely start making a name for himself here as well.
Yeah, I think the defensive tackle rotation's one to keep an eye on. I don't think that performance at defensive tackle is something to really dive into for a preseason game, but where the rotation comes in, right? And even that, last year, we saw Keandre Coburn get a couple of snaps with some first team guys as it went on, and that didn't matter at all, right? So I don't know how much to take into it, but I am excited to see a Fabian Levette. I'm excited to see Neil Farrell. I'm excited to see these guys and see if anybody just stands out. Does anybody look a little better? Danny Shelton was one of the best nose tackles in the preseason for them, and it didn't matter at all, right? So just any of these guys stand out, and are they doing what the Chiefs want to do? I just think it's hard to gauge the defensive tackle position for this team. So defensively outside those, linebacker, Cam Jones, I kind of have high hopes for Cam Jones still. I want to see what he looks like. I think Curtis Jacobs was a good one. Which linebackers look good in coverage because or not even good in coverage, which linebackers look like they have good range, both visually and physically, because they lose Willie Gay, who had elite range as a linebacker, even if he didn't always go the correct directions, right? He is very rangy, very fast, very explosive. Can somebody replicate that if they want that player to back up a Drew Tranquil, if they want that player to sub in for Leo Chanel at times? Is it a Jacobs? Is it a Cochran? Is it Cam Jones? Just what does a linebacker rotation look like? Who stands out? Who shows off some range? they probably going to get a lot of reps, right? When Nick Bolton's not going to play. So Cochran's probably going to get out there. Be the starting Mike would be my assumption at this point, which means you're probably going to get a fair amount of Cam Jones earlier in the game rather than you would expect. So like, yeah, you might get some guys that get some good run at that linebacker spot.
Swayze Bozeman.
He got hurt. Didn't he?
Cole Christensen.
There you go.
That's going to do it for... Oh, we got to do game prediction. I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know why we do, but we do. Give me a prediction. Give me a score.
It's a preseason. No chance I'm doing that. Don't you remember this?
Okay, so what's your
The game-
prediction?
Oh no, my prediction was the Chiefs are gonna. You kind of stole the thunder a little bit earlier. I was gonna say the Chiefs are gonna throw a very early vertical shot to Xavier Worthy just to see what it looks like. I think that you are gonna have a cornerback, but not one of the three that we've been mentioning: the Williams, Najee Johnson, Jalen Watson. I think you're gonna have a cornerback that is gonna make some highlight plays and stand out. And it's going to be real tricky as a fan to talk about it going into next week's training camp to say, Echo Boydo shouldn't be in the competition for cornerback 2-3. Keith Taylor shouldn't be, insert whatever corner it is. I just think a corner that's not Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, and Najee Johnson is going to have a big flashy game, probably playing against second or third stringers, but they're going to have a good game. And they should be getting in the conversation then. But I think it's going to make it extra convoluted because nobody else is taking over that spot. We had that deep shot prediction to Worthy, I think, in there. And then finally, my last one, you haven't mentioned him yet, Deneric Prince. Going to look a lot better this preseason. It's going to I think he's going to pop off the game a little bit. I think he is going to have a pretty good game. I think he's going to look like he belongs, and we're all going to understand the hype that they had for him.
Jaden Hicks is going to get a sack.
Okay.
He's going to get a sack.
Sure.
He's going to get some reps this game. It's going to be fun. That's going to do it for the Casey Laboratory. Thank you all so much for listening. We appreciate you. We love you. We'll catch you later. Have fun against the Jaguars.
Jaguars. They let you know.
Jags.
72-0 Chiefs.